Okay, so I realize this deck's a little bit of old news, but this week I'm going to be playing with Lantern Control in Modern. So the basis of the deck, for those that haven't seen it, is that it's really a stack, pretty traditional in the sense of you play a bunch of permanents, they assemble a lock. In this case, the lock is usually you Pithy Needle the things that can kill your permanents, or Thoughtseize or Inquisition the ones ahead of time, or Surgical Extraction them out of your opponent's deck. You then land Ensnaring Bridge so you can't be attacked. You set up a Lantern of Insight so you know the top card of your opponent's library. And then with Ghoul-Caller's Bell and Codex Shredder, you slowly remove the cards from their library that do matter, letting them draw a blank every turn until they eventually lose the game. And this is a deck that it's very powerful. It won Grand Prix Oklahoma City. What is this? About a month ago, almost now. Um, and it did well at Grand Prix Charlotte. Same person both times, Zach Elsick. And the way it's described, like the thing that really caught me about the deck is when he described playing the deck, he described it as every game is winnable if you don't mess up, or if they're not playing burn. Um, which really kind of struck me with the same kind of feel I had back in the day when I was playing Ad Nauseam Combo in Legacy, where I was just like, yeah, every game's winnable. Sometimes I mess them up and I lose. And this is a deck where I think there's a lot of intricacy, and I'd like to get started on it now. I think that it's something that could easily dodge the bans before the next Pro Tour, so I'd like to put in some hours up front and see what kinds of mistakes I'm making, and hopefully the mistakes that I'm making that I can like discover and talk about can help other people not make those mistakes as well. So we'll get back over here. Um, but also because I think that this is like an important deck for me to play because it helps me play slow Magic a little better. Like I tend to play very aggressive Magic where I know my lines. I'm like this happens go. This happens go. And this is the kind of deck where I'm going to have to like actually think about what I'm doing every single turn of the game. And I think that's going to be like an interesting way to force myself to play. So talk through the deck a little more beyond the hard lock. So the setup on this is just kind of the cards are in stacks in any kind of way. So 6 discard spells to take out anything they've drawn to start the game and buy you time to set up. Surgical Extraction to remove anything. You can actually mill something with Codex Shredder and get rid of all the copies of it instead of having the chance of them seeing another. Also, just like randomly KO stuff like Goryo's Vengeance decks. Randomly KOs like if you mill a Living End just loses pretty much. Pyrite Spellbomb in the end is a win condition with Academy runes, but also Ensnaring Bridge doesn't work so well against like O1 creatures. So Noble Hierarch can attack because his power is always 0, which is never greater than the number of cards in your hand. It triggers, it deals damage, and slowly you lose. So you kill it with Pyrite Spellbomb. Um, Grim Lavamancer, kind of similar. I did mention Grim Lavamancer. You can also Pithy Needle that. Pithy Needle takes care of a lot of stuff like Karn Liberated, Oblivion Stone, um, that can take care of permanents. It's just like kind of a really good catch-all, very similar to Surgical Extraction, but this is proactive, so obviously it's better. Abrupt Decay, take care of permanents on board that are going to be handling your stuff. Spellskite to protect your locked pieces and protect your face from burn spells. Aether Grid as the clock is a real thing. Win condition, you eventually find it and you just gun your opponent down with undamaged shots. Ancient Stirrings as the best cantrip that you could play in this deck. It finds all of the things and lands. One thing worth noting, I was reading Zach Elsick had linked to a primer from this deck from Randall, I'm forgetting his last name right now, who had actually was kind of his inspiration for playing the deck. Zach wasn't even the originator. It goes back to like an MTG Salvation forum post. And that thread is a real blast to read if you want to waste a bunch of hours reading, like 100 pages of forums. But I enjoy doing that every so often. It's a real blast to kind of see the deck because it's all documented. You can just see what happened to build the deck. So one of the things noted in that primer and in Zach's comments is that you do want to wait on Ancient Stirrings until you know what you're looking for. It's not like Tron where you're like, oh, if I find a or similar. it's both similar and dissimilar to Tron, where like Tron fires us stirrings early because its mana is like, and the time frame that it's working in is important. But at the same time, it's similar in the sense that you, or it's the sorry, strike that, reverse it. Tron is the reverse, where you want a stirrings so you can shoot, like if you're missing mine and tower, you want to get Urza's mine off the stirrings so your scrying can get the tower, so you know which one you need to find. This is the opposite. You want a stirrings, once you have, like you know what you need against their deck, so you need to like get a pithing needle to do this and this and this. Because when you stirrings, like any given piece could be bad or like good on turn one, and you just don't know against their hand or their deck. Some more things. Codex Shredder. Once you have Lantern out, you can target yourself to dig for stuff. You can also dig for stuff with Codex Shredder and its regrowth ability. Lantern in multiples, you can sacrifice them to get if your opponent has something relevant on top, to shuffle it away. That's kind of important against like flashback spells too. You can shuffle them deeper into the deck if you can't immediately deal with them. The mana, you've got no fetch duels. You just have untapped lands that don't immediately cost you life. Llanowar Waste, which might cost you a little bit of life. But for the most part, your deck's colorless, so you don't need to deal with that. Glimmer Void can activate Spellskite. Academy Runes as well off that. Eventually, you can deck your opponent with runes. And Mox Opal is just busted, which is great. Also pretty cool that you're playing a 17-land deck. Moving to the sideboard, there's a lot of very specific answers. So you have Ancient Grudge mops up a few different things. It's good against like Affinity and their one or like Signal Peasant or Ornithopters that can attack through a bridge and then get Ravager counters, or instant Cranial equipped, Cranial Plating equips. Kills Chalice of the Void, very importantly. A card that is otherwise problematic for you, especially with this board. At the time that Zach played this, no one really played Chalice. I don't think anyone's really like big on Chalice right now, but it's worth noting that Chalice on one does counter basically everything except for your Abrupt Decay, which, good luck, you got to find that real fast. Nature's Claim is another card that does this. Nature's Claim also kills Stony Silence, which is a problem. You can still empty your hand with a bridge, and a lot of the Stony Silence decks have problems with Ensnaring Bridge, but you do eventually have to kill it to establish a real lock. Pyroclasm to prevent you from just dying while you're setting up. Against Burn, it can kill their creatures. Burn, this should be common knowledge by now, but Burn is in Modern at least, is very dependent on its creatures for having any kind of real clock. If you just like bolt their Goblin Guide and then like bolt their Eidolon and then play a thing and attack them, they're probably dead before they can kill you. So this does some of that. Affinity as well. Merfolk against their really fast starts. Sun Droplet is the best burn hate there is. You could have, again, I'm kind of cribbing from the primer, but Sunbeam Spellbomb, I believe, used to be in the deck. But this is just a little more powerful. Pithing Needle, another one of those in the matchups that matters, like Tron. Cage against Collected Company, Court of Calling decks, as well as Gorios and things like that. And Welding Jar is to protect your stuff from the artifact hate that inevitably is coming in. Welding Jar also dumps your hand fast for Ensnaring Bridge. So I feel like I don't want to say I'm going to win a lot of my rounds, or I want to learn, and I think there's a lot of things to learn with in this deck, and I think it's a very... Alex Magelton, Affinity Master, wrote about this deck recently, and despite he has some comments that are pretty existential, but despite that, he was kind of talking about how this deck made him really rethink everything he thought he knew about Magic, which is really interesting. Also, interestingly, it made him really think about making plays in the time that you had and not necessarily finding the best play, which is not what I'm going for, but worth bringing up. Interested to see how this performs, and if it's capable, or if I'm capable of winning games with it fast enough for it to be not extremely mentally taxing.